Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Inventor's Quick Tips. In this episode, we will be taking a look at an example of how a patent application becomes an issued patent. We'll go into a little bit of the back and forth between the inventor and the patent office and see what goes into getting a patent to issue from an application, which is typically referred to as getting an allowance in patent jargon. So here is a patent we are going to discuss for this case study, which, as you can see in this illustration, is some additional airfoil that is mounted to the underside of an aircraft. Before we can discuss how the application became an issued patent, it is helpful for us to take a look at the invention in a little more detail. Figure 4 shows a perspective view of the attachable wing. Figure 5 shows the wing attached to an aircraft, a helicopter in this case, and Figure 6A shows a front view of the wing attached to a fuselage of an aircraft. So by now, we should have a high-level understanding of what the invention is. Now, let's take a look at the claim from the original application. Here is the first claim from the original application. That is, this is how the inventors submitted the broadest claim. Let's look at some of the different elements of the claim. We have a lower panel having an airfoil shape. We have a first side panel, and we have a second side panel. So now we have a basic understanding of Claim 1 and how it relates to the invention, which is this wing-type structure that mounts underneath an aircraft fuselage. After a patent application gets filed at some later date, typically within 6 to 18 months, the Patent Office responds with an office action. An office action typically includes rejections of some of the claims, along with reasons for the rejections. Let's now take a look at some details from the office action for this application. The main reference cited by the Patent Office was this patent issued to Colton et al. Now, et al. Simply means along with others. So this patent is issued to Colton, and some other inventors were also on the patent, but for the purposes of the office action, the Patent Office refers to this patent simply as Colton, and as we can see, it appears to be a drone of some kind. Now let's take a closer look at parts of the office action. As we can see, Claim 1, along with some other claims, are rejected under Section 102. A 102 rejection basically means that the Patent Office found something it feels is very similar to what has been claimed. I have another video that explains the different types of rejections in more detail, and I will put a link to that video in the description. As we can also see, the examiner at the Patent Office that was examining this application felt that Colton pretty much showed everything we had claimed, and in particular, they call out Figure 11B of Colton. Let's take a look at that. Here we see Figure 11B, which is described in the Colton reference as a tail wing. We now take a look at the attachable wing of the invention and compare it to the tail wing shown in Figure 11B, and yes, the invention and prior art do appear to have some similarities when viewed in this way. However, when we take a look at the invention and prior art as a whole, we can see that they clearly are not identical. However, the examiners at the Patent Office often talk about something called BRI. BRI stands for Broadest Reasonable Interpretation. It's a methodology that the Patent Office often uses when examining patent applications. As an example, recall that our lower panel was the middle panel that was below the fuselage. Here, clearly the middle panel is at the top. But what about the side panels? These side panels are lower than the middle panel, and they are mounted to what looks like the underside of the wings, but they are below the fuselage. And what exactly does below the fuselage mean anyway? Is it below the top of the fuselage or below the bottom of the fuselage? A common approach to receiving an office action like this is to make a modification to the claim to narrow it enough so that the claim no longer could describe the prior art. So here is a modified claim. Note that it now clarifies that the lower panel is entirely below the aircraft fuselage. That is the most important part of the claim amendment, as the Colton reference clearly did not show that. The rest of the amendment further clarifies the position of the attachable wing. It is now claimed as mounted to the underside of the fuselage. So clearly something that is not shown in the Colton reference, where none of the panels are entirely below the aircraft fuselage, nor are they mounted directly to the fuselage, but rather instead the panels are mounted to rods extending from the wings. So the next step is to file an office action response. The office action response includes the modified claims and also some arguments referred to as remarks in the patent jargon that explain how the modified claim is now different from the Colton device. Just two quick notes on the modified claim. In patent jargon, these modifications are referred to as claim amendments, and we can't just write whatever we want in these amendments. Whatever changes are made to the claims must be supported in the application as it was originally filed. In this section of the office action response, the inventor is explaining what was changed in the claim, and also pointing out text and figures in the originally filed application that support the change. The result of the response that included the amended claim was that the patent application was allowed, and it became an issued patent. Here you can see the issued Claim 1 from the patent. So it worked. Let's go through a quick summary of takeaways for office actions. As we saw in this example, we can make changes to the claims to get around the prior art. Usually this means making the claims more specific so that they don't accidentally describe something that already exists. Recall that we just can't make stuff up to add to the claims. Whatever is added to the claims must be supported in the originally filed text and drawings. If it isn't, the Patent Office will not accept it. The response can include both claim amendments and arguments known as remarks, and we showed an example of that in this video. In this case study, only one office action was needed, but in many situations it can take more office actions before there is an allowance. In my experience, I see that it typically takes 3 to 6 office actions, though it could take more. If it goes beyond 7 or 8 office actions without any allowance, many times the inventors will take a different course of action, such as filing an appeal, filing a continuation application, or abandoning the application altogether. Well, I hope you found this video interesting and helpful. If so, please like, share, and subscribe, and thanks again for watching.